Hello and welcome to part 2 of my time as an armored crew member on the M-60 tank, United States Army, 1981 to 1984. I took my training in Kentucky, was sent to Fort Hood for a year, and then off to Germany for almost 2 years. I had a lot of adventures. I went in at 17. My parents signed me in because I was not going to be able to graduate. I was in the 11th grade, behind in credits. I had been thrown out of school on 3 occasions. On the 4th occasion, my dad happened to be home when that phone call came in. He was unaware of the previous 3 suspensions. He was not happy. I wasn't happy either because I thought my dad was at work. He worked for the government, McClellan Air Force Base, and my dad never took time off. He was one of them guys that just worked, And so I was shocked. The principal was happy because it was my dad on this 4th incident that he was talking to. And he seemed pleased about that too, because after he hung up, he was grinning like a Cheshire cat saying, "Your father said that he'll be waiting for you when you get home." Well, that's a promise that was kept. So we lived on 30 acres in a Victorian house that was built in the 1800s. I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, but at this time there were 4 boys, 3 boys, and 1 sister living there. And my one older brother had gone in the Navy. And so at this point, it was now my younger brother, my sister, and myself. And I told my younger brother that I got kicked out of school again, and here's the notice. And Dad was home, and Dad got the phone call. And he's like, "Oh, man, you're in trouble." And I said, "Yeah." So when the bus drove past our house, and the house is all by itself in the middle of a field, that kind of thing, and little house on the prairie. And there's my dad by the car. He's working on his car, hood's up, and he's got no shirt on. So he's been out there a while. And the bus, we dropped about a half mile off from the home because a number of kids, lived out that way. And so everybody walked home. And my younger brother, couldn't get home fast enough. He wanted a ringside seat to what's about to go down. He wouldn't stay with me. I was trying to walk slow. And occasionally my dad would stop what he was doing, and I could see him full on the whole time. It's not like there were trees in the way or anything. And he would walk away from the car out onto the driveway, put his hands on his hips, and I'm walking slow. I walk up the driveway. I'm greeted by the dog and cat, which brought me some comfort. And we didn't use the front door. We used the back door. So I am heading to the back door, trying to avoid him. And he knows darn well I am, and he calls me over. He calls me boy. And when my dad calls you boy, that means that he's not happy with you. And so I walk up to him, and he tells me about the phone call, and I told him I was in the office when the call was made. And that he says, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'm not going to graduate." Being a smart ass, because that's what I do. I'm pretty funny, I'm pretty quick and witty and irritating, all in one sentence. And he says, "So you're a man now?" And keep in mind, I'm a virgin. And I'm not a man now. I want to be one day. And I tell him, no, I'm not a man. And before I could tell him why I'm not a man, but I do hope to be a man, he slaps my folder out of my hand and says, "Come on." And I say, "Come on what?" And he grabs me and he throws me down and he gets on me, and he's been working on the car. He's been in the sun. My dad's got green skin because he never gets a tan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got deltoids and muscles, and then there goes a titty flashing by, and I'm like grossing out because my sweaty dad's trying to rust me to the ground, and I'm a squirmy, wiry guy. And he's got me pretty good. And my oldest brother is going through the sheriff's academy, and he would come to the house and visit, and then he'd chase us and tackle us and throw handcuffs on us, and he would show us all these different moves he's learned to arrest somebody. And he had taught us, though, that if somebody's got a grip on you, grab their thumb and with all your might, yank that thumb back because they're going to lose their grip, and that will enable you to get away. Well, as I'm getting, old shirtless dad, sweaty ass dad wrestling me to the ground, that comes to my mind, and I find a thumb and I pull that sucker back like I'm shifting into second gear, and he starts going, ow, 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 and I jump up, and he gets up and he goes, come on. And I tell him, and I'm trying to get some distance, and my mom's on the porch saying, you leave him alone. My mom, she always protects me. And I tell my dad, I said, you're crazy. You've been sniffing too much brake fluid. And there's a can of brake fluid on the car. I mean, that was one of the chores he was doing on the car, his maintenance. And that just like pissed him off. And he just like a great white buffalo started charging after me. Well, we lived on 30 acres. He's barefoot. And there was a gentleman, Mr. Bailey, that would plow our field, plant straw, and then he would bale the straw and sell, bales of hay. And so I make a beeline for the field because I know old shoeless Tonto here is not going to be able to follow me. And he's chasing after me. My dad's big. He's like 6'3", and I don't know what he comes weighing in at, but he chases me into the field, and he hits those claws. He starts going, ow, ow, ow. Well, he can't follow me any longer, and we're just yelling back and forth to each other. My mom's on the porch telling my dad, let him come in. So my dad tells me to get in the house, and I said, no, because you're going to beat me. He goes, I won't beat you. He goes, but you're not living here no more. And I'm trying to think how that's going to work. So I go in the house. My mom tells me just stay in the bedroom and let's let this boil out. Well, my dad, he basically said that you're not going to school. You're getting kicked out all the time. You can't live under my roof. Call your brother. So I had to go live with my brother for a couple of weeks. But I would always make it to school after my suspension, and I was talking to the Army recruiter. And how do I get in the Army? I'm only 17. And he tells me, well, you don't need a GED. You don't need a high school diploma. Your parents sign you into the Army, and you'll get a GED in the Army. And I'm thinking, really? He goes, yeah, let's get you down, test you, and see what you qualify for. Well, I kind of know I'm not going to score very high, but I do take the test, and there's a number of jobs, the ASVAB test, and there's a number of jobs I qualify for, but none of them includes helicopters. And I picked tanks. Tanks are cool, and I want to be on tanks. He says, yeah, if we can move this fast, he goes, I believe there will be availability in the end of May or June. And I'm thinking, great. So I talked to my parents, and they agree that they'll sign me into the Army because they don't know what to do with me. I need to grow up. I need to man up. I need to get smart. And this ain't working, and they're not going to have a high school dropout. I can't live at home. And so I have to get a driver's license. So my mom and brother help me with that. And I get a driver's license, and the recruiter tells me, if we hurry up, we have, you could be in basic training by May 1st. So we move it along. My parents come to the recruiter station. They sign me in. I'm 17 years old. And in the 11th grade, I quit going to school, and my brother drives me to the Greyhound bus station, and off to Oakland I go, and from Oakland for in processing, I'm off to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and basic training. And you got to straighten up. But keep in mind, Ronald Reagan was the president, and he was on this military buildup, and he wanted to bankrupt Russia by trying to keep up with us. And so they were taking anybody and everybody, and there were people that made me look good. So you arrive at the reception station. By the time I got there, it was probably midnight, and the van that picked me up at the Louisville airport drove me onto Fort Knox. The guy pointed to the shack, World War II building. And if you ever seen the movie Stripes with Bill Murray, I arrived there just a couple months after they had filmed there. So the phone booths, those barracks, those tanks, you would never see those tanks driving around where you see them driving. They had tank trails, they had motor pools. So a lot of that's not what it was, but that reception area where that corporal, that he had the corporal take Bill Murray out for push-ups, that corporal was there. Now, the movie hadn't come out yet, so they were talking about a movie that was filmed there with Bill Murray, some of the people, but it hadn't been released yet. So anyway, so we're at the reception station for a couple days, getting fitted for clothes. They tell you what unit you're in. Delta Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Armor, something to that effect. And the drill sergeants, we get put on these cattle trailers, like a truck, but it had like a cattle trailer. And we're all making moo noises, thinking we're funny. And they drive us to these brick buildings, 3-story buildings that are going to be our barracks for the next 4 months, from basic training and some AIT and advanced interval training on the tanks. And so we get out and reality hits. We're being yelled at. And this is 1981. And I don't know what it's like now, but there were a few times where they got a little physical with you. If nobody was looking, I watched our drill sergeant throw a guy that acted like he was going to hit the drill sergeant. The drill sergeant threw him and came down on him and dared him. The drill sergeant told him how much he wants to beat his ass. Hit me, just swing at me once, and that's all the reason the Army will give me to kick your ass. And that was pretty impressive. We had Drill Sergeant Jackson, Drill Sergeant Gibson, and Drill Sergeant Russell. And I look at them these days fondly. I learned some things from them. But when you have to turn in your linen, and they have a guy with the fluorescent vest at the front of the formation. We have the guide on the flag, and you have to put a sheet over your left shoulder, your right shoulder, the pillowcase, and you march to supply, where you wait in line, and there's a whole bunch of other people doing the same thing, and you wait for your turn to turn in your linen, and then you get fresh linen and you march back. Well, I was assigned the road guard, and it's a lamp. I wear a fluorescent vest, and I'm supposed, as we approach a road intersection, myself and another road guard, we run up and we block that road with our holding out our road guard lamps as the formation walks by, and then we catch up. So in the midst of turning our linen, I had set down my lamp so I can adjust myself. And then as the formation moved forward, I moved with them, but I forgot to pick up my lamp. I turn around, and there's another drill sergeant, not ours, and he's holding the lamp. And he wants to know my name, and I told him Private Dutch Wood. And then he proceeds to tell me what a piece of shit I am, and where's my drill sergeant. And at this time, my drill sergeant is coming up, wants to know what's the problem, and he tells me that this man abandoned his equipment and he put everybody at risk. And my drill sergeant looked at me, is this true? And I say yes. And he asked me, how are you going to get that back from Drill Sergeant Patterson, or whatever his name was? And I said, can I have it back? And he looked at me like, is that how you talk to a drill sergeant? And now I embarrass my drill sergeant, so they make me do push-ups, and they tell me how stupid I am, and I feel stupid. And then I recover after 10 push-ups, and the drill sergeant says, I want you to say, Drill Sergeant Patterson, I made a terrible mistake. Can you forgive me? And if you forgive me, can I have back my road guard lamp? And I'm thinking in my head, I go, that's stupid. I'm going to do it. But I'm thinking, that's so stupid. I could have came up with something better than that. So I do it. I apologize, and I made a mistake, and may I have it back? And he gives it back. And he adds this in. He goes, well, I hope when you get back to your barracks, your drill sergeant figures something out for you. And I'm thinking, man, so now Drill Sergeant Russell tells me he's got plans for me. So we exchange our linens, we go back, we make our bunks, we get inspected, and you get X number of time to shit, shower, shine. And then we're going to go, to a class on something. And he tells me, come with me. So he brings me into the drill sergeant's office where Drill Sergeant Gibson and Russell are and Jackson. And they give me a pad and a pencil, and they say, I want you to write me the importance of a road guard. And I said, well, that's not a very long. We protect the formation from traffic. He says, no, I want it in extreme detail. He goes, I don't want I'm going to sit here for 5 seconds to read. He tells me I want it in excruciating detail, to where anybody that doesn't know nothing about road guards will have a full understanding of the role of a road guard. Do you understand me? And I said, yes, Drill Sergeant. He goes, go. You got 20 minutes. So I go back to my room and I share it. And I'm not going to say everybody's name. Everybody's going to be a private. I'm not going to assign their rank to them or nothing like that. But a basic trainer, everybody's a private. There's, I have Private P. There's Robert Capps, and I can't remember the other guy. And we're making the bed. I'm making my bed, and I tell them what my punishment is. But I'm worried they're going to do some more things to me. Well, Private P has got his back to the door as Drill Sergeant Gibson is walking down the hallway to check in on everybody. And as he starts to cut, and we can see him starting to come into the room, but Private P is blocking the doorway, and he stops, and Private P says, hey, Wood, I know what your punishment is. I said, what? He goes, they're going to make Drill Sergeant Gibson give you a blowjob in front of everybody. Ha, ha, ha. And Drill Sergeant Gibson is standing right behind him. And Drill Sergeant Gibson says, Private P, what did you just say? And Private P went white as a ghost. And he turned around and he's stuttering. And I'm not talking about you, Drill Sergeant. I'm talking about another drill. He's telling, shut up, you stupid dick. That's what he calls stupid dicks. Shut up, you stupid dick. You've only been in the Army a month. You don't know no other Drill Sergeant Gibson. Now the other drill sergeants hear the commotion, and they come down with their round browns on, and what's going on? And he's saying, Private P here is telling Private Wood that I'm going to suck his... What? And that just blows their mind. Get out here. And they take him out of the room, and Drill Sergeant Gibson says he'll be back. They took him out into the quad and made him run back and forth, just wearing him out and calling him all these names. And in the quad area, everybody can see this. Any spare time he had, they made him dig a hole outside the barracks stairs, and he was proud of that. He was very proud of that hole that he dug, and to the point where he would tell us, check out the hole I dug. Look at this. Because they wanted it to be X number of inches round, had to be so deep. And when he was done with that one, they made him dig another one on the other side of the stairwell. And it became this thing where he was proud of it. And he did such a good job that they put 2 big old posts in it, cemented it, and had a silhouette of a tank. It looked good, and he was proud of that. Unfortunately for Private P, once you graduated basic training, you started your tank training. You still had the drill sergeants. You still stayed in the same barracks, but you could have like candy bars. You could go to the bowling alley and have beer. It was relaxed. You would still have to stay squared away, but it was more relaxed. And unfortunately for Private P, at this point, I didn't drink alcohol. So I wasn't interested in getting beer. And Private P had drank so much that he was brought back stumbling drunk by 2 guys that he was able to tell them where his barracks was. And they just dropped him off on the steps in the charge of quarters, the CQ, which is you always have 2 individuals awake all night, and they're to man the phone, the desk, do fire watch, walk the floors every half hour, whatever it was, hour, just to make sure everybody was squared away. Well, Private P was already on edge because he tended to sleepwalk. And you can't have a sleepwalker in the Army. And one time he woke some people up to tell them that there's people shooting toothpaste through the window, and they figured out that he's sleepwalking, and then the CQ just basically led him back to his bed and he went to sleep. But this is the one that broke the camel's back for the Army, is that he was so drunk, they brought him in the room, and it woke us up, and we had to put him on his stomach so he didn't throw up in his sleep and choke. When that was something new to me, I didn't know that was a thing. And in the morning, we wake up, and we don't have to get up at 4:30, 5 anymore. We can get up at 6. And to us, that was sleeping in and do our thing. Then we're going to go to the motor pool. We're going to learn tanks. We're going to go to a class where they have turret mock-ups. And there's a lot to learn and a short time to do it in. But Private P was so hungover, he didn't get up. And we tried and tried. Well, under his bed, he had urinated throughout the night that it had soaked through the mattress, and there was a literal puddle of urine under his bunk. And it was disgusting. And we're telling him that you pissed so bad it's under your bunk, and he's rubbing his head, and now he turns around and he's looking at the wall where the window starts, and he's trying to get it together. Well, here comes Drill Sergeant Gibson. They're calling formation. We're getting ready. Sergeant Gibson walks by, and he already has a case of gas against Private P. And he looks, and he walks in, and he says, "What the hell is that?" And we said, he pissed his bed. And he got so mad, he grabbed that bunk and he flipped it, knocking Private P on the ground, and the bunk fell on top of him. And he's yelling. Now, of course, the other drill sergeants come in and they're disgusted. So we were told to get to formation. He didn't go to tank class, to this class. When we got back, he had to clean and buff that floor. Our bunks were pulled into the hallway. And now he was putting our bunks back, making our beds, and they had his mattress was at the bottom of the stairwell on the first floor, and his frame was the only thing left up there. They made him take his frame out to the quad and put the mattress over his back and shine his boots. And people from other barracks are yelling out the window at him, and they just he was let go after that from the Army, unfortunately. I don't know what kind of soldier he would have turned out to have been, but he had a lot of problems, which is unfortunate. He had a good personality. And so in the course of basic training, we're in formation, and Alpha, Bravo, Charlie Company, we're all in formation, and I can do impersonations. And I was able to impersonate a drill sergeant from another company. And it's so funny how I remember where the states are they're from, but he was from Pennsylvania, and he had a distinct talk like that. He would talk real short, he would talk real loud. He'd talk, "You guys are all scumbags, so what you got to do? You can listen. You can listen, I'm going to make you better. You won't be a scumbag all your life." That kind of talk. And Drill Sergeant Jackson, my drill sergeant, did not like him. And he told me that. And he found out I impersonate that guy, and he asked me about it, and I told him I do. So he said, "I want you to impersonate him, and you're going to wear my hat." So in the middle of all these formations, these Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and we're in Alpha, Drill Sergeant Jackson says, "I got a treat for y'all." And he puts his round brown on my head. He goes, "You're now Drill Sergeant Patterson." And he goes, "I want you to address the company." So I do. And that Drill Sergeant Patterson is just looking, and he's just staring at me, and he hates my guts automatically. And I do a pretty good job because people are kind of loosely giggling about it and stuff like that. But Drill Sergeant Russell felt that Drill Sergeant Patterson needed to be vindicated, and Drill Sergeant Russell knew a secret about me, that I was a virgin. So I'm put back in formation. Drill Sergeant Jackson has his hat, and then Drill Sergeant Russell starts saying, walking back and forth, going, I have an important announcement, and we need to get people, we need to address this. This is serious because I'm going to put out some information. He goes, if you're a virgin, come out here and stand at parade rest right here. Well, I'm a virgin, so I break rank and I walk out there and I turn around and I go to parade rest. And then he tells me to stand at attention. And they're like, who else is a virgin? Well, nobody else is saying nothing because they're smarter than I am. And then Warsonic from New Mexico, Albuquerque. He says, over here, Drill Sergeant, I'm a virgin. Drill Sergeant Russell says, get out here. He gets out here. He makes him stand at attention next to me. And the drill sergeant proceeds to tell everybody, whoever gets stationed with Private Warsonic or Private Wood, you are to take them to the nearest whorehouse and pay the whore to break these guys' virginity, because the United States Army does not have virgins. And there's no way a tanker is going to be a virgin at their next duty station. Are we clear? So while he's doing that and he's making them say, yes, Drill Sergeant, there's a lot of guys committed to buying me a hooker. So I whispered to Warsonic, I said, I didn't know you were a virgin. And he says, whispers back out of the corner of his mouth, and he says, I'm not, I just felt sorry for you. That's a buddy. And Warsonic, we did eventually get stationed at Fort Hood together. And that put back in formation, and it was never brought up again. It was brought up again when I got stationed at Fort Hood. And it took 2 carloads of people for me to be taken down to find a lady of the night. And since I wasn't paying for it, I didn't get to do the picking. And at great risk, I'm going to talk about that. There are a lot of people from a lot of different places around the country join the Army in basic. You had all these personalities that have to get along to get through this. I didn't mesh too well with a couple people. We had a gentleman, Private B, who I've never seen somebody so young with so many tattoos. He said he ran with a gang in Bakersfield. I believe him. I don't know what, he just took a dislike to me. And whenever he had a chance, he'd like fake, like he'd like cock his arm like he's gonna hit me. One time we were in line for chow, and that the drill sergeant pulled me out to ask me some questions about, I don't remember what, and they told me to get back in line. And Private B from Bakersfield was behind me. And I got back in line, and he leans over to my ear and he goes, what the F you doing? Get in the back of the line. And I told the drill sergeant, he told me to get back in my place, which is here. And he goes, no, you get in the back of the line. And I tell him, no, I'm supposed to be here. So he proceeds to tell me the first chance he gets, he's going to take his steel pot, which was our helmets, and he's going to swing it at my ear, and he's going to break my eardrum with it. And I believe him, but I can't tell on him. That's one thing that I'm really not, is I'm not going to tell on somebody. And I'm afraid of him because I believe he's going to do it. And there are some opportunities. People will do crazy things. It's a volunteer army. So you're there because you volunteered to become a soldier. And we had one guy, Private P from Maine. We're at the 45 pistol range, and I qualified expert. My oldest brother especially would always take us shooting. Always has, still does. And so I was pretty familiar with handguns. And we didn't qualify for the M-16. We were tankers. But it was the 45 was especially our sidearm that we wore. And Private P has been complaining, and he's tried to get kicked out, but he didn't go to the great lengths like the Private P that peed all over the place and sleptwalked. So he tells me that if I discharge my weapon into his foot, he can go home. And when he goes home, he'll be sure to mail me $1,000. And I tell him that you're crazy. You don't want to be shot in the foot. That's forever. And he asked me more than once in the same range qualification time frame. And that was the only time I felt I needed to share with somebody in charge that we have a problem. And so I went to Drill Sergeant Russell and I said that there's a problem, that Private P has asked that I shoot him in the foot. And I'm afraid that he might shoot his own foot because he's asked me more than once and he seems serious about it. So they pulled him off the firing range. He had to sit in the Jeep and made sure they watched him because they considered this to be a real thing. They sent him to the chaplain, and it was just a moment of weakness on his part. He really did. He proved that he didn't really want that. So he did graduate and stay in. And while we were in AIT, I never said nothing to the drill sergeants, but there were like a model of a Cobra helicopter, and there was a model of a Huey. And I've always built models. A lot of my brothers too. We built models growing up, and I still build models today. And it wasn't painted. There were like glue fingerprints on the canopy. And I was in there. I had developed a stress fracture in my foot. So I was put on light duty for a week or so. And when I was in the drill sergeant's office, I had made a comment. Who built the models? And Drill Sergeant Gibson says he did. Why? And I said, well, they're not very good. And that made him a little upset. And he goes, what do you mean they're not good? And he picks up, he goes, this is a Cobra Hell. I go, yeah, I know what it is. I said, but Drill Sergeant, look at the glue on the canopy. You didn't even paint it. And your decals are silvered. I don't know what to say. He goes, could you build better? I said, yes, I could build better. And he goes, you build models before? And I said, yes, Drill Sergeant, I've built plenty of models, and I like airplanes. And he knows I like airplanes, and there's a little story behind that. And so when people had to go do police call and some other stuff, because we didn't have civilian landscapers quite probably what they do today. So there were times where you had to get issued a rake and rake leaves and pick up cigarette butts and just do general cleaning around the barracks. So the drill sergeant says that, that everybody's going to do that. But, also to a range. We had to go clean up a range before too. And Private Wood's coming with me. So we get in his car, and, I haven't been in the car since I've been there, and it's kind of neat. And we drive to a hobby shop, and he picks out a model. And then we go to his home. I meet his wife. It's like he's normal. He's a drill sergeant. I respect him, but he's got a train set in a room, and I had a train set that when I was younger, and a HO layout, and he's showing it to me, and I'm getting into it, and I can speak the language, and his wife is let me. I'm drinking a soda, and his kids are there. It's like this is a normal family. He's not mean after all. So it's time to go. He grabs some modeling supplies to build, and then we go back to the barracks. I go into his office, and he wants me to build. And the first one he had, and I'm not into this, is you build your own railroad rolling stock, a Santa Fe rolling stock train car. And I tell him I'm good at airplanes. I've never built a train, and he goes, "You'll be fine." So that's what I did for his HO layout. I built him, and it turned out nice. So I built him, and we had to buy this certain color of red, almost like a rust red. But that's what I did. And those guys that were having to do the extra duty stuff were pissed because they could see what I was doing. And when they were done, I wasn't done. So I still spent some time in there. But that was kind of like a funny little break that I got in the course of being there. And the last story from Basic I'll share is that I didn't have a girlfriend. I had what I considered a girlfriend, for a little bit. But that didn't last long. And like I said, I'd never been with a woman or anything like that. And so a lot of guys had pictures of their girlfriends, and some were married, some had fiancés, and it was on the inside of their locker wall. Well, I missed airplanes. I might have been less than motivated to get educated to be on airplanes, but I still liked airplanes. And I asked my mom, can you send me a couple pictures that I have? And I've put them on a YouTube reel of air shows I attended in the 80s. I'm sorry, late 70s, early 80s. So my mom sent me a handful of pictures, and those were on the inside of my locker wall. Well, the company commander wants to inspect our barracks. He wants to inspect us. He wants to inspect our lockers. So we have to make them tight. They got to look good because you do not want to fail this. So he did. We spent all, half the day getting ready, and then in the afternoon, he comes by, and the drill sergeants are with him, and his admin, whoever that was, I don't know. And he goes from locker, and he looks at the personal pictures, and people's got pictures of dogs. They got pictures of their house, of their motorcycles, or whatever, their all that stuff, and their girlfriends or wives. And he gets to my locker, and he looks at it, and he looks on the thing, and here's pictures of a P-3, an A-6, a Vulcan bomber, and he looks at that, and he goes, "Don't you have a girlfriend?" And I said, no, sir, I do not. He goes, "Why do you have pictures of airplanes?" And I said, "Well, because I like airplanes very much. It's a hobby." And he goes, "Well, why didn't you join the Air Force?" And I said, "They wouldn't take me, sir." And he looked at me like, am I being a smart ass, or am I being genuine? And he looked and he looked at the drill sergeant, and he says, "The Air Force wouldn't take him." And the drill sergeant goes, "He's GED." I guess that was a stigma. So they move on, and the drill sergeant looks at me, and he moves in close to where the brim of his hat's on my forehead, and he tells me I'm an effing bonehead. That was Drill Sergeant Russell. And in all honesty, he had to reach a little bit. He was kind of short. I never learned. Anyway, those are stories from basic training. The next episode, we're going to talk about when I was sent to Fort Hood, leading up to the first story I shared out of sequence was when I disappeared in the desert for 4 days and landed on my feet. So anyway, I hope you enjoy these. I look back on my Army times with some fondness and some regret. I so wish I could talk about some things. Maybe I will, but I'd probably lose every subscriber I have. Anyway, go out and have a blessed week. Thank you. Thank you.